Green Bay hustle, grind it up. Hit the field, we don't bluff. Touchdown dances, feel the love. Jordan's got that MVP stuff. It's time for Ohio. Let's go. Packers bringing that show. It's time for you know who. Wanna go, gonna glow.
Aloha and welcome back to the Ohana Packers Edition podcast, the podcast where Joe and I guess I'm back finally. Joe isn't alone anymore. And we're also joined by Carlos Silva, one of our esteemed writers at Ohana Packers Edition. So, Carlos, first off, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us. Carlos,
Thank you
where
for
are
having me.
you? Yeah, what
I'm.
time is it for you right now?
It's 11 o'clock, so it's 11 o'clock.
Okay, so
Yeah,
not too
yeah.
bad.
No, not too bad. No, in Cal. Yeah, you guys. What state y'all live in? I'm in California, so we're behind.
I'm Iowa, so I'm in the Midwest, so it is currently 1:11 right now.
And now I'm out in the
1:11.
Pacific, so I'm behind all of you.
What time is it there?
9/11.
Oh, damn.
9/12.
What state is this?
Hawaii.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, so the Packers wrapped up their 10th win of the season. Jordan Love has reached the height. Well, okay, you want to get super semantic about it. You know, only 8 of the wins are under his record, but he has led a team to double-digit wins for the first time in his career. The Packers have basically all but sewn up a playoff spot at this point. It's contingent on them winning, but also like if certain teams lose, they're pretty much locked in. So really good spot for the team to be in, especially after last season where they were in win or go home mode for like 2 months. But lots to talk about today, lots to like about the game, and some not so great things popped up. But we'll go into our usual thoughts on the game. So, Joe, Carlos, please.
Fresh
Actually,
cheese.
Carlos, since you're our guest, yes, fresh cheese. Carlos, since you're our guest, your fresh thought from the game last
Oh,
night.
O-line dominated I like the O-line dominated, and the defensive line did great too. It's just the common theme of these games is when we get after the quarterback, our defense will start getting good. When we don't get after the quarterback, like you saw against the Lions, we just get cooked. Is this pass rushing?
It's not me for once. O line, Carlos. You were on O line and D line. Don't worry. Like I said,
Yeah,
this is
O-line
the
and
dance
D-line.
that Joe is forever doing with me. So hop back into it. D line dominating. Go.
Oh yeah, D-line dominated. O-line was pushing people around. It was very very good to see, and Eric Stokes actually didn't look bad for once. That's a plus. So that's the biggest. That's my 3 biggest takeaways from that game.
Yep, all good points. I mean, we've talked about our keys to games for much of the season, and it's win the line of scrimmage, and the Packers definitely did that on Sunday night.
Yeah, and I mean, like Carlos said, the O line was really dominant. I don't think they even really got close to Jordan, did they? I think
Only a couple weird plays, and most of those were like kind of like almost coverage plays. You had the one where Jordan broke the pocket. He almost broke 2 defensive linemen's ankles, and then he just couldn't quite get enough mustard on the football to hit Watson back in the middle of the field. It was a little bit of one of those like, oh no, like don't make that throws. And then the other one was the one where they ran the hard play action, and then Love probably could have gotten rid of the ball, and then he like at the last second decided I'm not throwing it, and it kind of just slipped out of his hand. Other than that, I don't think he really saw that much pressure because other than that, the only other time he really got rushed was because they were running, some sort of a screen element or quick hitting scheme. So like it wasn't, there wasn't like immediate pressure in his face or anything like that. So yeah, it's turf inside of fuck. I don't even know what they call it anymore. I still call it Quest because that's what it started out as. But what is it? Are they Acrisure? I forget already. Or no,
I
they're the
don't
one.
know. I don't pay attention to the stadium
Yeah,
names. But just
but
looking at the stats, they only for QB hits, there were 6, but there were no sacks. So, I mean, that's as clean a game as you can really have. He had his moments where he, like you said, he really didn't get enough on the ball, or he didn't, he had somebody in his face or something. But he had some of those moments. But overall, it, you can't complain about the offensive line. Same with the defensive line. That was as dominant as they've been. That was the Miami game defensive line. That wasn't the Lions game defensive line. Uh, Looking at it, we had 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 11, 12 QB hits, and what was it, 7 sacks for the game. So, like I said, that was the Miami defense that Miami game defense that we had hoped that they had turned the corner and then kind of fell flat against the Lions, but now they're back. Hopefully, they can continue to stack successes and really dominate going forward. Don't start doing that shit, Mike. I'm tired right now, and if I see you yawn, I'm going to end up passing out.
So from 5,000 miles away, it's my fault. But no, that sounds about right. No, but yeah, no, like this was akin to not just that Miami game. Honestly, it looked more like at times it looked like that Tennessee game where, Seattle's not terrible on their O line, but there were times where it looked like they just couldn't block anybody, and Green Bay was getting pressure from anywhere and everywhere. And it wasn't just blitzes; it was a lot of 4-man looks and stuff, and that's really what you want to see at this point in the season. You know, I, Rashawn is getting hotter. Kingsley is finishing plays, which was one of his bugaboo early in the season. He'd get to the quarterback or he'd get to a potential tackle for loss, and he would just whiff and stuff. So finishing plays for Enigbare is a big thing. Carl Brooks is coming alive. Wyatt showed off the burst that he had to open the season before his injury. Kenny was like half a step away from a forced fumble. Just a lot of pressure from a lot of different guys, and of course, Cooper was just lightning in a bottle whenever his number was called to attack the pocket. So Hafley came up with a really good game plan, and he really did protect his compromised back end, with Jair missing the game, Bullard missing the game. So it was really good to see that attacking mindset from the front, and they were able to get home and pressure the quarterback. So really important, especially because, Gino was like 12 for 12 or something like that to start the game or whatever the hell it was. So it was really nice that in between, if he wasn't completing a pass, it was because he was on his ass and stuff. So that's really good to see from this defense. But Joe, what was your fresh takeaway from the game?
The main one that I've got is well, I guess there's 2 main ones, and they're the low hanging fruit of the group, and it's basically Christian Watson, Romeo Dobbs, and Josh Jacobs. You can combine the Watson and Dobbs ones as receiver play, and then you got Josh Jacobs. I thought it was really weird, even though I kind of called it in the preview that I had to do by myself. Thanks a lot, Mike. That Seattle's run defense is like nil. They're like 22nd or 23rd or 24th in run defense. So you just need to start feeding and feeding and feeding. And then once they sell out to stop the run, play action, gimmick plays, over the top throws. And they pretty much started out doing that. And Josh Jacobs took it well. And, he looked really good. And then, like I said, Christian Watson and Romeo Dobbs. It's great to see Romeo back out there. I'm still not used to seeing those friggin' Guardian caps, so it looked really weird with it on there. But hey, if that's how he's comfortable playing and he can put up another game like he did, do it. Go for it. I am all for it.
Yeah, I think because he wants to protect his head. Because when he caught that ball, that amazing catch, you can see that he kind of banged his head on the thing, and thank God, pretty hard. So it's pretty good. That I think those guardian caps are going to become very useful. I think players should consider wearing that to avoid concussions.
For sure. Now, I'm going to bring something up, and I want you two to either tell me I'm full of shit or agree with me or something, but I've got to bring it up. I got into on Blue Sky with Jason Hershon, or however his name is pronounced. He said that at the beginning of the week, Romeo was still in the concussion protocol. And I said, that's a little bit concerning that we're in week 3 and Romeo's still in the concussion protocol. And we had this argument back and forth about it that, oh, well, this is normal process. I said, yeah, but they wouldn't keep him in the protocol this long if there was not some kind of concern still going on, whether it's him having a concern or the team having a concern. So, like I said, we had this long back and forth. What are your guys' thought on that? Because we just had Evan Williams, who was in the concussion protocol the same way. He went through the steps, boom, boom, boom. He was back within a week. Now I know not everybody heals the same. Not every concussion is the same. But if that's taking you that long to go through those processes, and then we see him come out with the Guardian cap, there's a concern there, whether it's his or the team's. Am I wrong, or what is your guys' opinions on it?
I think more than anything, it just shows that there is no like one, this isn't a one size fit all kind of thing. Devontae, he had that joke where he said like, because I think I forget which year it was, but I'm pretty sure he had the one season where he got concussed on a Sunday and then he was cleared by Thursday for a Thursday night game or something like that. And he joked, and I hope he's okay, but he joked, he was like, I'm just the fast healer kind of thing and stuff. But and I do believe that one occurred before the protocol was really set into effect. And that's the thing, is it's like, it's the when you're in protocol, it's not a matter of how he feels or how the team thinks he feels or anything like that. That's the whole third party medical professional and all that kind of stuff. So the it's all about baseline testing and all that kind of stuff. So okay, so like to go the real like old school way, and I know that they do like like more like MRI level brainwave scans and all that kind of stuff, but it's the like, okay, here's like 12 letters, remember them, and if you can repeat them back kind of thing, you pass. If you can't, you fail. So
How many fingers am I holding up?
right, yeah. And so like, let's just say for 2.5 weeks Romeo did not pass those, and it I wouldn't necessarily go concern like you said, Joe, but it goes into this really gray area, because so on one hand, you don't like seeing anyone get a concussion, and you don't like seeing it take that long for them to recover. But at the same time, Dobbs, I don't believe, has had one in the pros. I don't think he had one, or at least not a reported one at Nevada. So it's hard to say. And maybe it was because it was pretty bad what he took. Like Carlos said, the the only difference between his head hitting the turf in Seattle and what he did in Green Bay is he fell on his back in Green Bay, and so it's the combination of his head, the whiplash of his head going back, and then it also contacting the ground. So there's a lot of moving parts at work there, and then you know you would have thought that obviously we said it at the time, there was no way he was going to make the Thanksgiving game, because he got concussed against San Fran. There's just no way that you're going to pass protocol in 4 days. Devontae jokes aside, but then it was a little concerning that he was practicing, which means he's progressing through the protocol in between the Thanksgiving game and the Detroit game. But he's practicing, so he's making some kind of progress. But at the end of the day, he's not cleared through protocol to play against Detroit. And then we go into last week Monday, when LaFleur has his opening of the week press conference, and LaFleur drops the bombshell that he's still in protocol. So long-winded, all that to say is like, I wouldn't say it's a concern, but I will agree with you that Dobbs is taking it very seriously, where it took him, he missed 2 games with a concussion. It took the equivalent of 2.5 NFL weeks for him to get cleared, and therefore I don't blame him or question his decision to wear the Guardian cap, to have that extra layer. Whether it's a sense of security or I don't even want to get into the like he needed it or whatever, if this is for his peace of mind or anything like that. That's the thing is like it's not like wearing a cast on like a hairline fracture or an ankle brace or anything like that where it's like it's extra protection. You either cleared protocol or you didn't. So it's like it if I view it as more for the peace of mind than it's like it's like a band-aid on a broken leg kind of thing or anything like that. So yeah, it's one of those where I'll only be concerned if he has another one before this season's over. That'll be where my concern
And
level goes up.
you also have to remember the Packers are very conservative on injuries. They are like they don't play around. Like they even played Jair, even though Jair practiced fully this week. So yeah, I remember the Packers take their time with these players. They don't want to rush them back out there because they already messed up with Jair because they should never have put him back on the Bears game, and then boom, he's missing a couple more weeks. So I think the
Especially
Packers are
on
just
that
trying
shitty ass turf. Yeah, agree.
that was bad. Now we should hopefully we'll get him on Monday, but we'll see. But they are conservative with injuries, so I have to take that into consideration.
Well, and I get what both of you are saying, and it's not like I'm saying that, oh man, this is this is bad news, bad news. It's just it's worrisome because, like I said, is it from his end where he's not, is he going to the doctors and saying, hey, I'm still not feeling right, I'm not sure about this, or the doctors telling him, hey, your tests aren't coming back. So that's where the concern comes in a little bit with me.
Yeah.
It's not so much that I'm worried about this, you know any minor things. It's is he, is the concussion severe enough that maybe we need to back off of it a little bit and just let him, stay home and rest, or is it that, and I wasn't trying to pick on the Guardian cap for anything against him, but it just was weird that he came out and he had it on there. So is it more that he's got concern in his head, that, hey man, this next hit I'm going to take is, I'm going to get rocked and I'm going to get it, is, are these symptoms going to come back? So that's where I'm saying the concern is. I'm not
Yeah.
saying that it's concerning that the Packers are keeping him in the protocol.
Oh yeah,
It's
yeah, yeah,
more
no.
that what's going on with the injury that's the concern part of it.
I kind of do wonder because, like I said, I don't remember him having one in Nevada, and I know he has. I'm pretty certain he hasn't had one while he's with the Packers these 2+ seasons. So I do wonder if it's like first time you hurt something, you're kind of like, oh, like I don't want that to happen again and stuff. And there's no way to completely remove it from the game, but I do wonder if suffering that one and to some degree it was bad enough that he didn't clear protocol for over 2 weeks. So I do wonder if he was kind of like, yeah, don't want that happening again. So I'm kind of curious, like the other part that we see a lot of guys wearing, DeGuar wore it, Keekly wore it a lot, was that neck thing that that thing that looked like it looked like a temple massager, but the one that's on their neck kind of thing. I was kind of surprised he didn't wear that because I know that one is supposed to help with the neck whiplash. So, but
Okay. So to
yeah,
interrupt you for a minute, I just did a random type in to see what it would pull up for Romeo Dobbs's injury, and they actually have an injury guide that goes all the way that has all the reported injuries for him. Never knew they had a site like this, but I guess they do. In 2019, it says Dobbs suffered a head injury and the Wolfpacks lost at Oregon.
there you
So
go.
I'm going to assume the head injury is going to be some kind of concussion. So
Yeah,
he hasn't had one since 2019.
there you go.
Hmm. That's interesting.
Yeah,
But yeah,
I've never seen this site before, so that's weird that they have one that has all of, like I guess it's a fantasy outlook, so hey, I would think that HIPAA laws would be violated and some of that shit, but who am I? But and then just to kind of finish out the catches, both him and Watson made were just amazing. I said it during the game that it really looks like Watson is starting to step into what we thought he was. And obviously he's not an amazing route runner, but he is that athletic freak that is making the catches. He's starting to get a little bit more physical. Remember earlier in the season when we were complaining about how he wasn't getting those PI calls because he wasn't playing back towards the ball? Guess what he did today? Or not today, what he did Sunday night. He was playing back to the ball and got the calls. So, long story short, Christian Watson, Romeo Dobbs, and Josh Jacobs all are fresh for me.
Right on. Yeah. And on top of that, just to kind of put the icing on the cake for all of that, Love was really really good. There's a couple throws I know he wish he had back. I think he wanted to put a little more air under the one that drew the DPI at the end of the first half. I know he had the one into the end zone on the 1 3rd down. I think that led to their first field goal where Dobbs looked like he was running to the corner and Love left the ball a little more up the field. And, Dobbs might have had enough time to adjust to it, but he couldn't quite find the ball in time. And then, like I said, there's a couple other ones where his ball placement was just slightly off. And like the last one was at the very end of the game where he had Watson deep and he underthrew it by about a step or two. And you could tell like he didn't want Watson to have to make one of those like jumping catches where it almost looked like Watson kind of rolled up something at the end. And so, it's like A- game for Bluff. I know that's being harsh, but we're at the point of the season where every throw matters, every play matters, and he was on it. He started the game something like 17 for 18, and they were like, oh, he was 0 for his last 4, but it's not like he was bad in those 0 for 4. There's some misfortune in there and stuff, and he had the one play where like he threw it to Watson and Watson didn't see the ball when it appeared from behind the linebacker kind of thing and stuff. So um,
And he
Love
did the
was
same
really,
thing with Dobbs in the end zone too, where he
yeah,
put it and they had miscommunication. Yeah.
yeah. So it was one of those where Love put the whole, you put all like the social media hashtags like hashtag arm angle, hashtag arm talent, and he put all of that on display on Sunday night. Um, I know like the counting stats aren't super gaudy or anything, but it was just a really good, it becomes a dirty term for a quarterback to say it was a ball control game from Love, but it really was. He really did control the tempo of the game via his passing. He was efficient with his checkdowns. He was getting through his reads really quickly. Like I said, there was only that like couple of plays where he kind of held the ball too long, and he could have been a little quicker to make a decision and stuff. But otherwise, I just thought he had a really good game, and like I said, it's coming at the time of the year where you really need it from him. Any more fresh thoughts from you, either of you, Carlos, Joe?
Uh, like I said, I think the D line is starting to pick up a little bit. I'm loving.
Oop, he trailed out again.
That's what we want. We don't have to blitz
There
all
we
the
go.
time, and that's great with Jair. We don't know if Jair's going to come back, so the D line. I mean, I can keep watching all day. I think Lucas Van Ness, he didn't have a sack, but he was getting pressure, but didn't get a sack. Rashawn Gary, he's getting back to his old self, and Kenny Clark is getting back. If these guys can keep going, man, it's going to be dangerous in the playoffs. But we got to keep it up, though. We can't just fall off every time we start to get high on the pass rush, because we fell flat last week.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of what when you play a team like Seattle, they want to throw the ball a lot, and you can attack them.
Hang on.
Yeah, yeah. No, but to kind of extend your point, Carlos, yeah, the D line played up really well. I know, so it's one of those where when you're playing a team like Detroit, who wants to establish a running force and all that kind of stuff, you're gonna play a little more, not conservatively necessarily, but you've got to play the run on your way to the quarterback and all that kind of stuff. So you can't sell out. Whereas against the Seattle team, where they really were controlling the line of scrimmage up front, and they could snuff Seattle's run game for the most part of the game. Safe, really safe for that long touchdown run that Charbonnet had to make it 23-13. Other than that, Seattle wasn't really doing a damn thing on the ground all game. So Green Bay was able to just kind of pin their ears back at different points. And like I said, that's why I kind of looked at like that Tennessee game from earlier in the season, because Green Bay kind of just was able to have whatever they want at any point in time up front from pass rush standpoint. And it was just really good to see. I know that Seattle's O line hasn't been great this season, but it was good to see this defense take advantage of that. So, yeah, obviously, you're right, though, Carlos. You want to see a little more consistency across the board when you play up in opponents. Saints O line is so to decent, and then the Minnesota game in a couple weeks is going to be the big one. So, big stepping stones for this group, but looks like they're priming up at the right time of year. So, hope to see it moving forward. Joe, anything else you had for fresh from Sunday?
I'm trying to find it here real quick. I'm trying to get the stat number out of it, but I can't seem to get it. Because Carlos and I were kind of talking about it before we started recording, and that was Eric Stokes. I got to give him a fresh this week, and per snap counts, he played 100% of the snaps. So, you know, from playing almost no snaps at the beginning of the season to now he's playing every single snap, every single down. I got to give it to him. He must be turning something around and, doing the work, and he's finally healthy. Maybe I, I still agree with what Carlos said before recording that he's probably not back next year unless it's on like a very team friendly deal. But good on him to be playing, we're seeing progress with him again. He's starting to look a little bit like he did when his rookie season. So, good on him. I really like it.
Yeah, and then obviously we got to talk about Carrington. He had the back-to-back plays where he almost had a pick, and it's not like he dropped it. Smith and Jigba made a nice play to rake the arm away, and then so the first play was like man coverage basically. He stacks the route, doesn't let Smith and Jigba get up vertical up the field, and runs the route for him. And it's a nice play by Smith and Jigba to break up what would have been an interception. And then on third down, he makes the right read in coverage. He sinks off as the cover two squat corner and gets underneath the corner route and picks the ball off. So really good to see from Valentine. Like you just said, Joe, it's most likely that Stokes isn't back with the team next year, but Valentine will be unless they draft like 4 corners in the draft, and for whatever reason, Valentine is squeezed out of it. But
Ends up like this next year's Anthony Johnson Jr.
I mean, never say never, but yeah, like it would take something like that to happen. But it's good to just see them, roll with what they've got. And, Valentine's got a skill set that you like, especially in this defense. And it's good to see him have some production that kind of goes with what most of his play has looked like this season. So good to see him back in the good graces there. But no one else has anything super fresh. Joe, let's move
We'll
on.
let Carlos lead off with the
Yeah.
stale. Oop, oh, I got to hit the button though, don't I?
What's this stale shit?
Stale is probably
uh, anything that stuck out as stale for you this week?
second half offense. That was pretty hard to watch because we should have put 42 on the guy, but we didn't put 30. But I'm happy that that second half offense has to be better. That it was pretty terrible at some points. We couldn't win the ball at one point.
Hang on just a second. I'm having a hard time hearing him. Are you hearing him,
Yeah.
Mike?
Yeah, I can hear him. So yeah, Carlos was pointing out is like the second half offense was the definition of stale. They weren't as consistent moving the ball. You had some disjointed drives, and it took LaFleur a little while to adjust the run game because you know right after the fumble they posted like just Jacob's stats, and I think after the drive after the fumble, he was something of like 7 rushes for 8 yards with the fumble to toe. And I think a big part of it is like, so from halftime on, Seattle basically said, we're just going to jam the line of scrimmage whenever you show any sort of a run look. And it took LaFleur a little too long to adjust out of that, whether it was throwing on early downs, or reincorporating the Jaden Reed sweeps, or things like the push pass or the jet sweeps and stuff. It took a little time to really take advantage of Seattle being so aggressive, and part of that is Seattle just overloading the box, but also part of it is like Green Bay just had some boneheaded mistakes. The first third down that the offense faced in the second half, they just don't block Leonard Williams for some reason, and Jacobs gets buried in the backfield. But even the play before that, it looked like Jacobs had room to bounce that 2nd and 2 run, and he kind of just ran into the pile. So a little bit of like inefficient play by everyone involved on offense to start, but and then obviously punctuated by the fumble that led to Seattle's only touchdown of the game. So yeah, you don't like seeing lulls like that, but providing yourself with a 17-point lead at multiple points in the game, it allows you to work through some lulls. And granted, I know LaFleur wasn't trying his hardest to problem solve as the game went on, but I agree with Carlos. This is a game that you should have put 40 on the board. Like it was a little disappointing that you kind of like got stuck at 23 for the longest time in the game. So it would have been nice to see at least one more touchdown on the game, because it felt like they, I don't want to say they deserved it, but they played to a level that you expected them to have scored one more touchdown on the night.
All right.
What's your
Say
stale,
something
Joe?
for me real quick, Carlos, so I know
Oh,
I'm. Yeah, see, he's a little distant from me.
I think he's compensated for the echo. So yeah, I
Yeah,
can
but
hear you, Carlos.
I can hear you. It's just real light, but yeah, that offense, and I'll cover a little bit more of it in our moldy section. But yeah, that second half offense was not great, but really, there's not too much stale that you can sit here and point at. I mean, this was a pretty solid game. I know Carlos and I kind of talked about it before recording. Keyshawn sure didn't look great for the most part, but they put him back in the slot, and he's not really been a good slot defender. Uh, so yeah, that wasn't great. Uh, okay, I got one. I do have one, and it popped in my head, and I could be, again, this could be something I'm completely wrong about. You guys can tell me I'm wrong or whatever. Uh, it always seems like every time there is a report saying so and so is not happy about the number of targets they're getting, that next week the Packers are overcompensating for it. So, there was a rumor that Watson wasn't happy with the way things were going. What did they do? They immediately threw him out there and just started targeting him left and right. Dobbs, what was the rumor about Dobbs getting suspended for the game and not making contact? He wasn't happy with his role. So what they do when they brought him back? They immediately started targeting him. Now the last couple weeks it's been, oh well, Jaden Reed's not getting targeted, and he's not getting used and he's not happy and all this stuff. What did they do? They went out and just continuously targeted Jaden Reed. I'm not against targeting these guys, but what makes it stale is the fact that they overcompensate for something that we hear as a rumor. So that puts it, how do I want to put that? Uh it kind of leads to the rumor mongers that they were right. So then they go out and continuously start pushing these rumors again that, okay, well, this is going on. So yeah, I thought they were kind of forcing way too much with the Jaden Reed stuff. Not that I'm against using Jaden Reed, but you know, let's not overcompensate with some of these targets.
Yeah, you can kind of take it that way. I think this is kind of a byproduct of the fact that this team just has so many weapons, and it's everyone wants to know who's the top of the target list and all that kind of crap and stuff, and it really just comes down to who's the matchup who's the positive matchup in any any one game scenario. You know, last week, especially with no Dobbs, Watson was the guy because as good as Detroit's secondary has been, they do have athletic limitations, problems with dealing with deep speed, and you saw it on that one play where Love hit Watson up the sideline, and it looked like both Carlton Davis and Kirby Joseph were running in quicksand on that play. And tonight, Tariq Woolen is a guy who, he's super athletic, but at times he doesn't find the football. And that's how you kind of end up with some deep shots to Watson and also some opportunities where it's just throw the ball up and see if you can draw a flag, which they did do in a couple scenarios. Griffin falls into that category too, the other starting corner for the, or not Griffin, oh, shoot, just fogging up. Griffin plays for the Vikings now. This is what happens when you watch football in the same day as you record a show. But and then today with Reed, it's like I said, a lot of Reed's touches are a result of Seattle jamming the box, and it's like, okay, what do we do? We're going to use Reed on misdirection and stuff. So I think there might be a little bit to it where it's like, okay, like we do want to get back to featuring this guy and all that kind of stuff. But like, I mean, last week against Detroit, they threw the ball to you, Jaden, and you dropped it. So it's like, it's hard to be upset when you don't catch the ball when it is thrown to you. And sure, there could be more targets, more touches, and all that kind of stuff. But it's also game scenario and all. And like I said, I do think not having Dobbs the last 2 weeks, it it messes up their hierarchy because Dobbs is the guy that, he's not the sexy option. He's the quote unquote least talented of the receivers on the roster and all this kind of crap. But it's like, he's the guy that they trust to do all the quote unquote standard receiver things. And he's the one who's running the dig or the stuff in the middle of the field so that Watson can go deep or so that Reed can be used as gadget player and be, just wide open on most of the plays in a game and stuff. So each guy plays their part. Yes, they can function without a guy here and there, but this team operates at its best when it has all of its weapons complementing each other because they can just throw the kitchen sink at you, and very few teams have the ability to cover all of those different guys. You have Watson who can stretch you deep. You have Dobbs who can work the intermediate and median deep parts of the field, and then you have Reed who just can catch the ball anywhere and take it the distance. So, and then outside of that, you have Tucker Kraft that you have to deal with, and then Jacobs will come and just run through your face if you stay light in the box. So, I do think it's a little bit of a, for LaFleur even there's some feeling out to it because as much as guys had certain roles coming into the season, players improve, players change. Like you said earlier, Joe, Watson has improved as a route runner. He's not a precision route runner like some would make you believe on the internet, but when you marry his improved route running with his athletic ability, any sort of nuance to his route running plays up because a defender is already being hyper aware about his deep speed and having to respect that. So, if he shows the ability to give a head and shoulder fake while digging his foot in the ground and cutting outside on a route, that innately will create extra separation for him as a route runner. So that kind of improvement, honestly, for Jaden, that's the thing is like, if it wasn't for Wicks, there would be a long line of like Jaden Reed bad drops in games and stuff like that. So it was a good night for Jaden. And even still, he had the one play where he fell down on a third down play, and it was like that was going to be an easy completion if he doesn't just get bit by the turf monster at that point. So, but like you said, Joe, like this is one of those games where there's a few things that stick out as not positive, but it's hard. I don't want to say it's hard, but this game falls into that gray area of where do you put it in the stale like Carlos put the second half offense, or like you said, like are they target hunting a little too much, or some of the other stuff. Like for me personally, I don't really have a stale for this week. I guess my biggest stale is like Josh put the ball in the outside arm if you could have and just like try, the fumble was, I'd say it's 70 to 80% misfortunate, and 20% though it's like, dude, you're on the left side of the field, put the ball in your left arm. Like, this is football 101 and stuff. So that'll be my stale. But yeah, like we're at the point where it's stale that the offense wasn't as productive in the first half. And I guess if you want to like very good Olin, but as good as they are at everything, one of the things that they aren't good at necessarily is like, like that Detroit O line can do is where it's points of the games where they're just going to want to run the ball.
Did we lose
Front,
Mike
but
this time?
ah,
There we
am
go.
I back?
Now you're back.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, like that'll be my still. And like I said, this is picking nits, but um, in the second half, we kind of talked about it where Seattle just started to jam the line of scrimmage, and it took a little bit of time for LaFleur to adjust his run calls, to go back to more of the Jaden Reed jet sweeps and push passes and stuff. But you want to pick nits about it. Green Bay's O line isn't quite at the level of we're gonna run it and we're gonna still run it efficiently and proficiently at you. And I put it in the stale because I think they can, but they just had a couple one too many mental mistakes. Like I said, the first third down of the second half, you just don't block Leonard Williams. You fumble the ball when you have momentum and the ball in plus territory and stuff like that. I think they're like 3 or 4 plays away from having a just as dynamic second half. But at the end of the day, as much as we're like kind of grinding our teeth about it, they didn't lose ground in the second half. They still, they matched the Seahawks in scoring, not just over the half, but by quarter as well. It was 3-3 in the third quarter and 7-7 in the fourth quarter. And that's as LaFleur is like salting away the end of the game and stuff. So I put that as stale more than moldy, but I think we're kind of just throwing stuff at the wall at stale. So Joe, let's move to moldy for this week.
Well, Carlos, was there anything else that you had as a stale?
I mean, to be honest, I can't really say anything. Hopefully, Quay getting back healthy is one of my biggest things because he's starting to improve, and him and Cooper on the field together, that can be a very dominant duo if they can stay healthy. So I think like Quay being healthy is my biggest concern right now.
Yeah, that play he got hurt on, it was kind of weird. So he got hurt the play before he left the game. He was trying to jump over Gino at the last second. He realized Gino was sliding, so he tried to jump over him. And as he goes to jump, I forget who was chasing Gino, but whoever that defender was took Quay's leg out. So, and you saw it on the next play when he tried to backpedal and he just couldn't. So that's one where maybe it does help that they play on Monday. That extra day off. Maybe you get that little bit of extra recuperation and recovery for Quay. But yeah, it'd be a bummer to not have him against the Saints, especially with Kamara also dealing with some kind of like hip pointer or some sort of soft tissue injury. So it was good to see Cooper back, but yeah, especially with Quay, like you said, Carlos, especially with Quay on an upswing the last month of the season, it'd really be a bummer for him to miss time because of this ankle injury. So you hope that will, and that's the thing is like because they play on Monday, their practice schedule is shifted back a day, so we won't know till Thursday. So yeah, by the time we record the preview show, they won't have practiced yet, so we won't really have an update for the show. But yeah, we'll just cross our fingers and hope that Quay is ready to go for Monday night. But we'll kind of have to see how that plays out over the week. But yeah, that you're right, Carlos. That definitely Quay's injury would fall into the stale because it's not horror. Well, okay, I don't want to say it's not horror, but it's a bummer. It is a bummer because, like you said, his play was ticking up, and you really saw the athleticism play up between him and having him and Cooper on the field together.
The one thing that is gonna, if he's not able to go against the Saints, is going to be how Edgerrin kind of handles that, because it seems like those two play off of each other and their play is bumped up because of it. So now, without, if Quay's not out there, is Edge going to be the same type of, have the same success, knowing that, or with McDuffie on one side and Eric Wilson on the other side? This was another thing Carlos and I were talking about. We both wish that we could see more of Tyron Hopper and see, how that's going to go. So yeah, this Quay injury is not the greatest thing in the world. It comes at an all right time because it is the Saints. Um, so it's not. I mean, it's any given Sunday, anything can happen, but it's not like it's Vikings, or it's the Lions, or the Eagles, or a team like that. So if they've got to rest him, they can rest him and just hold out for it. But I think I'm good. Anybody else got any more stales?
No, I'm good. Carlos, you good? He can hit us back if we get there. So let's go
Okay.
to.
It's
Okay.
a moldy cheese.
Cool. Carlos, what was the thing that just stank for you from Sunday night?
There's nothing that stunk for you. Great. I mean, what stunk? I mean, with the offense, I mean, that could be fixed, but like defense, we didn't really allow anything to happen, so there was nothing stinky. Maybe Nixon's bowling penalties. That's about it. But outside that,
Even those were as much on the refs as it was on Nixon. Like it's yeah, we could go. Joe and I have had a whole running what you call it, just a running dialogue on that because yeah, you heard Collins where it's kind of like. He's like, oh yeah, they called holding, and I don't see anything there, and that's for like I'm not the biggest Collinsworth fan, but that's a former receiver talking, and receivers tend to side with receivers, and for a former receiver to like just be like, that's what we're calling, like he all but said like that's what we're calling. Okay, like you heard the like kind of disgust in his voice about the I forget which one of Nixon's two, but both of them he kind of tailed off and was kind of like, like that's it. So yeah,
I've actually got 3 moldies that I can do. 2 Packer and one, or 2 Packer game and 1 non-Packer game, but yeah. So the first one I'm going to do is kind of, and I kind of mentioned this earlier because it kind of goes in with what Carlos was saying about the offense. That whole end of first half 2-minute drive, that was horrible. They were playing for the field goal. They could have
that
had
was gonna
they
be
were
mine.
driving
Yep.
the ball. They could have had the touchdown, and they wasted so much time that they had to settle for the field goal. So that's definitely a moldy one for me. Uh, the next one, it has to do with the Packers game, but it's not so much Packers. It's Seahawks fans when it comes to uh, Gino's injury. Because, oh well, why wasn't that this, and why, that was a low hit. They explained it to you during the game. He had 1 foot in the air, and that takes out that penalty. Number 2, it wasn't purposeful. If you actually go back and watch that play, Cooper was stumbling towards Gino. There was no way he's going to stop mid stumble and say, "Okay, Gino, get out of the way so I can fall." He was just playing it out. He fell. Gino got injured.
I was trying to wrap him up. He was trying
Yeah,
like
he tried to wrap him. He tried to wrap him up, but he stumbled as he was getting to him, and there was nothing more he could do about it.
Yeah, and like I know this is gonna sound rich coming from like a Packer fan who's definitely been upset with how Love has or hasn't been protected by quarterback rules, but that's one of those. It's like it's kind. Gino can be upset and their fans can be upset, but it's like he should have thrown the ball away like 2 steps earlier. Like I don't know what he was trying to buy time for. That play was cooked. Like it was so cooked. He should have gotten rid of the ball way sooner. And like I don't want to play the blame game, but it's one of those where, especially as the fan of the opposing team, it's like you should have just thrown the ball away sooner. Like it kind of bordered on a fuck around find out kind of thing, because like, and why, and like you said, Cooper stumbling. Why is he stumbling? Because Gino tried to do like a S. Yeah, he did like a S turn in the backfield. Carlos, we're getting um, bounced back again.
Wait, is it echo now?
Yeah, it's an
Time
echo
at some
again.
point.
Oh, let me see.
But
Um,
but yeah, I think
my last one to go with that is a non-Packer one, but he was a former Packer, and that's Devondre Campbell. That's some moldy ass shit right there. How do you quit on your team
That was
at the end
bad.
of or in the third quarter and I'm not playing? I did see they handed him a 3-game suspension, so they must have worked it out with the league on how they were going to be able to do it. I do agree with doing the suspension because, like everybody else said, if you cut him, he can just go somewhere else, and you just gave him his way. Even though I don't think any other team's going to touch him if he's just going to up and quit.
No,
yeah, no,
he's cooked. He's really done. He's gonna come
yeah,
back.
it's really bad. So, hey Carlos, can you just try mute for a sec? Okay, let's see how this works. But yeah, one of my moldings was gonna be like Joe with the 2-minute offense handling. I got that was one of the few things I could see before I took off. Oh, but
I didn't bump him; I just muted him.
but like I said, and like you said, I didn't mind them running out of the 2-minute warning. Like that's good. You keep the clock moving. You're moving the ball on the ground at that point. You're going towards the end zone. But once they ran that play where and Love and Reed don't do anything wrong, but once Reed only gains 3 yards and gets tackled inbounds, call timeout. And what happened, after rewatching it a couple times, what I think happened was, and to me makes it even worse, is they thought they were going to catch Seattle substituting and we're going to be able to get a free playoff and get either free 5 yards or get a big play out of it kind of thing. But once you don't get that free play, that illegal substitution look from Seattle, you got to just burn the timeout and stop the clock at that point. But instead, they like muddle huddle and then they like reset the play. I think they send like 2 guys across the formation, and at that point, I'm like, okay, that's 10 seconds, that's 15 seconds, that's 20 seconds, and like you said, Joe, and it's not even like you're inside the red zone at that point. You're outside the 40. You're either outside or just inside the 40-yard line. So you're like on the fringe of field goal territory at that point. And it's like you've got 2 timeouts and you basically turned them into you basically set both of them on fire by allowing that much time to run off the clock in between that Jaden Reed play. And then you run a play that to Dobbs that doesn't get you the first down or get you out of bounds, and it's like, well, shit, like that just cooked the goose there. And then, like I said, what makes it look stupid, extra stupid, is you get a DPI that gets you down to the 4-yard line, and all it does is put you in field goal range. And that leads me to my other moldy point, and that's, Matt, no one fucking believes you're going for it on 4th down anymore.
Thank you.
Like, okay, I get that, you're increasing the odds by doing all the window dressing, all the motions. Chris Collinsworth is making a big deal out of how Myers snaps his head side to side and Love claps. And I forget, was it you, Carlos, or someone else? But someone was like, when Love claps like that, you know that they're not doing anything because he doesn't do that on a regular play.
He
Even
doesn't.
on plays where he's like, hurry up, hurry up. He's actually stamping his foot, not clapping his hands. And so it's like, like I said, I think it was the Detroit game. You can see certain ones of their fourth downs. Detroit has like multiple D linemen who don't even have a hand on the ground because they're not going for it. Like no one buys it anymore, and they know that the only way they can get burnt is if you fuck up on your own, kind of thing. So, like you've got whether you actually get the first down, you've got to be strategic about it and like be willing to not I don't want to say set a down on fire, but you have to be willing to fail. And I don't know if Matt is so gun shy about it for whatever reason, but until you're willing to try and do it, no one's gonna fucking believe you're doing it. And like I said, it's been like 3 or 4 weeks already at this point where they've done the hurry up and do all that shit, and like I'm like, and I'm not the only one. There's a lot of people who are like, no one believes you're doing it. Like, and about the only thing that they're doing better than with Rodgers is they're not burning a timeout to still not go for it on fourth down. So yeah, it's like at some point you just and I'm not saying for Love to disobey LaFleur or anything like that, but at some point if you feel like you've got a play that you know is going to work, Jordan, just snap the ball and live with it. Like you're that good, you're playing that well, like, and honestly, whether it's a wide open play or if it's just a throw up and arm punt, I can live with that because at least you're snapping the ball and letting something have the possibility of happening. What if a DB falls down or if it's a DPI or whatever or something like that? But this raggedy tag, having the George Carlin, the George Carlin, that his routine at the line of scrimmage, that shit ain't working no more because no one believes you're doing anything of substance. And honestly, I kind of do. I'm somewhere between irritated and upset when you see because you have multiple ones where you're in like midfield or slightly plus territory. The ones last week against Detroit were worse, I thought, because the Seattle game. Like I said, you can be upset about it, but you're up 2 to 3 scores, and you're like, okay, like it's you want to see more aggression, and yes, like they should have gotten to 40 points, but at the same time, you are playing the scoreboard, playing the clock, and all that kind of stuff. But like that Detroit game last week, he had the 4th and 6 or something like that, and or 4th and 3 a couple times. It's like you gotta go for one of those, and because it's like your defense isn't stopping shit, kind of thing. So, like and especially against Detroit last, like I said, this has been a thing for like the whole season, but especially last week against Detroit. How does Detroit score 2 of their touchdowns? It's having the courage and their conviction to go for it on fourth down. And 2 of their touchdowns on fourth down happened because they catch Green Bay a little bit unprepared and they have walk in or just hand me touchdowns because Green Bay's got a linebacker that's not aligned pre snap. And it's like, oh, Goff could have handed the ball to whoever he threw it to because that person is just wide open. And it's like, Matt, just fucking pull the trigger on one of these. So
Yeah,
yeah.
even though Dan Campbell can be an idiot of going for like
Yes.
now, he can be. I think with the you gotta be careful is you have to be balanced. It's okay to go for fourth, but know when to do it. Like because Dan
Yeah.
Campbell just does it so much, but it gets so ridiculous. Like, bro, you can't go for fourth down or when you're down. We can't do all this stuff when you're like ahead. Don't go like if you're ahead, bro. Don't go for fourth down. Just be chill. I think
Yeah.
Matt needs to be aggressive, but just choose the right time to be aggressive. But Matt has to be aggressive more. Don't be
Yeah.
too conservative. Like go for it sometimes. It's even though you're gonna fail.
Yeah. Like you said,
Well, I'm going
like
to throw one out there that makes his decision making even worse than his fourth downs, and that's his when to throw the challenge flag because he's 0 for 6 this year with challenge flags. So if these are two decisions that are extremely important when it comes to the game, your fourth down decisions and your challenge flag decisions, and he's not doing good at either one of them right now.
yeah, he's had I want to say a couple of them have been really close. I and I know I took a little flack for it. I thought the Kenny Clark play on Sunday night was a closer, but granted, I was watching on my phone screen with shitty United Airlines Wi-Fi. But
That should never have been challenged. I mean, there was no
yeah,
need.
watching it on my TV, like yeah, it was it was a little more clear and stuff. But yeah, I was like on my phone, it looked a little closer and it
I think
looked
the
like
players told. I think that's on the players. The players told them to challenge it. My thing was, why would you challenge that? Like you're playing great. You're up by 2 tuds. I was like, don't. Why would you even challenge that? I would never challenge that. Like, say those challenges like when like it's close, like very very close. Because if you don't get one, you only get one left. Because that's the thing about those challenges facts. Like he lost. It's like, bro, why would you challenge that? You're up by 2 touchdowns. Like put that challenge flag
yeah,
away.
and then it gets magnified because later in the game they have to burn the third timeout right before the second Dobbs touchdown, and Collinsworth even highlights it when they come out of the timeout. He's like, "Okay, Matt's got to hand over the challenge flag because you've got no more timeouts." And I think there was like 5 minutes left in the game at that point, and obviously we know how it played out. But you know, I never really was concerned, and obviously I didn't get to watch that part of the game live, but it's one of those where like this is a different team. This isn't crooked nose Pete Carroll or Russ Micro Bubbles Wilson, but you do have those bad memories in this stupid ass stadium of like shit going wrong late in games and stuff. But yeah, I'm just glad that they made the plays that were there to be made and stuff. But I know it is. There's just been some, like I said, LaFleur's a good coach overall. I think he's done really well adapting. He had to deal with the elephant in the room of making Aaron Rodgers happy his first 4 seasons as a head coach, and now he's getting to as much as Love is improving and growing as a quarterback. LaFleur is also getting to spread his wings, but yeah, it's been a weird year overall where like his team was super undisciplined to start the season, just leading the league in penalty rate and all that kind of shit. And then, like you said, like I said, one or two of the challenges I thought he got a raw deal on, but
Right.
the other ones have all been like, why did you do that? Like, what? Like you said, and like Carlos said, it's not an excuse to be convinced by your players, kind of thing, because everyone knows there's at least one guy on every coaching staff whose sole job is to be like, throw the flag or put the flag back in your pocket. Like, that's their sole job, is to tell the coach when to eat it or when to throw it, kind of thing. And so, yeah, like, and the other one, this one didn't really fall into the Kenny Clark one, but I do hate the people who do the whole like, oh well, you're calling timeout, so you might as well challenge it kind of thing anyway. I do think, like I said, that wasn't the case on this one, but I think that one is a stupid reasoning as well, because it's not the same. Like, and like Carlos was alluding to, you kind of, there's the chance you'll need those. So like, if you gotta call timeout, just call timeout unless the play is so close it's actually worth it. So yeah, like, just a little bit off on the coaching side of it. Like I said, it goes, I put those into the moldy because these are repeated issues that have propped up over the season, and we're 3/4 of the way through and there's still problems. So yeah, the fourth downer, like you said, Carlos, we're not saying that he needs to go Dan Campbell stupid over aggressive or anything, but you've got to go, fuck it. I don't know the last time we've gone for it on a fourth and like borderline, where it's like, do the old heads say you punt versus the new like computer model say you go for it because it's better for game control and all that kind of stuff, says to go for it. So I feel like LaFleur needs to roll the dice on a couple of those, especially in situations where the game is either tied or within a possession where if you extend your drive and go down and score, you take the lead, or if you're up like anywhere from 1 to 4 points where your touchdown extends the game another, like it takes it from a 1 score to a 2 score game. You've got to roll the dice on those, because especially one of the things that we've been talking about this whole show is your defense is compromised to a certain degree by injury. So you've got, And even wholly healthy, your defense isn't a like shutdown defense. It's built to play with the lead so it can rush the passer and create takeaways. So even more
I
so,
well,
it's
I think the one thing I can say is that that's what the Lions did. Like the Lions defense is pretty banged up, but they win time of possession and keep their defense off the field. Now with Buffalo, they didn't win the time of possession, and you
yeah,
saw what happened. Their defense got exposed, and saying, people said, "What's up with Detroit's defense?" I said, "Yeah, because they're playing. They play with a lead, and the offense keeps them off the field. That's what they basically did with us because." Yeah, the Packers offense was on the field for only 22 minutes. So Detroit had 32. So it's like, yeah, your defense is compromised. I think our defense is elite when healthy, but it's still good to win that time of possession, to keep them on the field, keep them
yeah,
rested. Oh, we didn't do that with Detroit last week. We did that with Seattle. Seattle, we did a very good job. But I think we won 32-27. That's just pretty, really, really good. That's very, very
yeah,
good.
almost 33-27. So yeah, like, but yeah, like I said, these are the
Stats for
ones
you.
where it's the season long issues, and these are the margins where you've got to win more of these if you want to get far in the playoffs and have a shot to win the Super Bowl at the end of the year.
Yeah, so here's some stats for you on that. According to Stat News, the Packers have attempted 11 fourth downs this year and have only converted 5 of them for 45.5% fourth down rating. This one's kind of sick, and this is where they've got to work on it a little bit better. They've attempted 153 third downs and only converted 58 of them, so they're sitting at 37.9% conversion rating on third down. So, yeah, when it comes to fourth downs, you might as well go try it. If you're going to go out there and put on a show, just friggin' try it in some of those situations. But yeah, so far both their conversion rates are not that great anyway.
But yeah, guys, you got anything else? Just whether moldy or just
Yeah,
overall
Marisol's
from the game?
probably over there with the like knife, like yeah.
Yeah, that's all my takeaways.
Yeah. So overall, like you guys said, most with Quay coming out the back end too serious for him, and he's able to bounce back and get back on the field, whether it's on Monday night against the Saints or the following week against the Vikings. But if neither of you have anything else, we can go and just put a bow on this one and go on into the sweet night. So yep. So first off, Carlos, thank you for joining us. I know that you and I had battling Wi-Fi issues throughout the show, but
Yeah,
we, as just like the Packers this season, we have battled through and we made it to the finish line, and hopefully that's brighter things are on the horizon for us. But thank you for joining us. It was
no
great having
problem.
you on. Please make sure you're following Carlos on both Twitter, excuse me, Twitter and Blue Sky. He's also putting out great articles for us at Ohana Packers Edition. Check the website out, ohanapackersedition.org. Carlos's articles are posting up there. Joe and I will put the odd one up whenever we have the time to do it. Streams of Brian's Cheesehead Cheesehead Talk is on there. Sorry, I'm coughing up a lung and trying to do the readout at the end of the show. Go check out the shop, purchase our merch, support the channel or support the show. Really appreciate it so that we can fund Carlos's time that he puts into writing articles for us. So tumblers, sweaters, coffee, you name it. And just keep hoping for big plays from all the guys on the team, because every time something happens, Joe comes up with a new slogan to put on a shirt or anything. So every time that happens, we drop new merch that you guys can take a look at. Follow the podcast on all of your social medias: Twitter at Ohana_Packers, on Instagram at Ohana Packers Edition, on Facebook just search Ohana Packers Edition. Please follow the podcast on your favorite podcasting app. Give us a like and a subscribe if you're enjoying what you're hearing. And any of your comments, we want to hear them all, so we're producing the content you're looking for. As we noted, the Packers cemented their 10th win on the season. They're that much closer to locking up a playoff spot. Granted, the Vikings and Lions continue their stupid black magic runs. So as of right now, the Packers are in the 6th seed. But we'll see how that shakes out the rest. There's only 3 games left for everybody on the season. But hopefully with a little, self-control, because the Packers do play the Vikings. And, there's some cross matches that happen along the way. But hopefully the Vikings will not drop a couple more games so that Green Bay can get into that 5th spot. But keep it tuned in here, Ohana's Packers edition. We'll keep you covered. We'll let you know where the team stands. Carlos joining us. That's Iowa Joe. I might wish you go Pack go.
Green Bay hustle, grind it up. Hit the field, we don't bluff. Touchdown dances, feel the love. Jordan's got that MVP stuff. It's time for the up. Let's go. Packers bringing that show. It's time for you know who.